Okay, welcome everyone. Daichi Miller here from Warrior Concepts. We're in for another Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. So let's just jump right in. So we're going to take a look at a grouping of models that it depends on who's teaching, right? Classically, in one school, it was given up front, but I think it needs to go into different places. But either way, it's called the Sanshin no Kata. Sanshin means three hearts, okay? Uh, One of those is footwork, right? But it really depends on which of the three levels of transmission you're talking about that everything goes through. But either way, right? So we're taking a look at the Sanshin footwork, and what I want to do during this lesson was take a look at tactical footwork and how these things are embedded in the Sanshin no Kata. Now, I had a heck of a time trying to figure out how I was going to map this thing out here without having some artist come in and draw a bunch of pictures and whatnot. So uh, we'll try to get through it. Okay? So the challenge is going to be me conveying things that way because, again, this is a Kuden level training. I'm not the dancing monkey demonstrating, but I will make sure that there is a link in the description for those who are new to the training or have no idea what I'm talking about. They're coming in from the outside, curiosity, whatever, right? So I'll make sure there's a link to a series of videos that I did, one on each of these models a long time ago, right? But if you're on YouTube and you're familiar with the channel, you just go down to that playlist and there they all are, right? Don't worry, a lot of people don't like watching them because, well, Sensei talks too much. But you can figure it out on your own. Just go through YouTube Shorts, see something, and then try to decipher all the stuff that you can't see in there, right? Anyway, again, we're going to be looking at the 5 footwork patterns and what they convey from a distance perspective in an active engagement, right? It's easy to do these things as a solo model, step by step, and a lot of assumptions can be made, but we want to take a look at what's being conveyed and what's being taught, right? But to really understand things from this perspective, we have to know what the models look like, right? So again, I'm going to put that link down, but also that's going to be the focus of this Friday's virtual class, not just doing the models, right? When people come to class, I'm going to assume that they already know the models because it's one of my advanced classes. Not that we don't let other people into it, but they have to know that when they jump into that class, well, it's like jumping into the deep end of the pool and trying to figure it out, right? But either way, the focus of the class will be to marry up the models with the tactics that we're talking about today, right? If you already know the models, no big deal, right? Take this, run with it, have a great day, right? So where am I? My notes here, right? So anyway, before we take a look at each of the models that make up the Sanshin and how each teaches a particular tactical thing, right? First, let's take a look at what we should be able to do, right, if needed, to maneuver and adapt to given attacks, right? If we think about distance, if we think about maneuvering, if we think about being able to adjust. Now, if we're a one-trick pony, right, we always do the same thing the same way, whatever, right? I'm always boxer dude, right? My feet are always in the same place. I'm in, out, that kind of thing. Very rarely do I change sides, unless the inertia pulls me in there. Then none of this is going to matter, or conversely, all of this is going to matter because, well, I'll talk about that in a minute, right? So while no two attacks are identical, and we may not need like all of these, right? I'm going to lay out several of these things. I originally started off with 5, ended up with a bonus one. Not that there aren't others, but we're going to kind of lay these things out. But no two attacks are identical. We may not need all of these things, right? But if we can't do what we need to be able to do, right, in an actual encounter, right? Again, if we're a one-trick pony, if we always do things one way, we always do things the same way all the time, well, then we have to hope that we'll always be defending against the attacker who does stuff in a way that our shit works, right? But anyway, so let's take a look at 5 footwork tactics. Actually, there's again, more than that, we're going to cover 5. Throw a bonus one in here just because it matches up with the models. And then we'll just go from there, okay? So if we think about what we might need to be able to do, right? One of them is to advance, okay? I'm going to put an extra word in here, chase, okay? Let's say I pop this guy, hit him, and he's stumbling back, he's off balance, and I have an opening to get in there again, right? I need to be able to like go, right? Move in there, okay? Conversely, I might need to retreat, okay? Escape, whatever, okay? So in this case, he threw one, I dealt with that, but the next one's coming too fast, and I need to bail, right? I need to keep on moving, okay? The next one would be maneuvering, spell correctly, sensei, maneuvering, okay, in tight spaces, okay, or at close range or whatever. So what we're looking at here is there's like 5 different ranges, okay? Just when we first introduce students to punching and striking and things like that, we give them 3 delivery methods that handle the basic 3 ranges, right? We give them a lead, we give them a cross, and we give them a lunge, okay? So leads actually handle mid-range because they reach farther than crosses do, right? And I don't mean cross like a boxer's cross, which leaves you wide open if you miss, okay? I mean lead delivery, lead leg, lead arm. Cross delivery for us is the lead leg is forward, but the cross side limb delivers the strike. And then a lunge is rear hand, rear foot. I cover much more distance, right? But there is close range, or there's close range, or very close range. There's long range, and if we actually want to count it as a range, there's also out of range, right? So, but again, we need to be able to advance, right? Chase the guy down. Like if we do something and he's stumbling, we need to get in there. And this is not the same. I watch videos. I was doing some research the other day for some stuff that we're doing, and somebody else's video, unfortunately, they're in this stuff. Their thing popped up, and the amount of ballet work that they were doing, right? I call it ballet work because they were overstretching and the back foot was coming up off the ground, right? This has been a no-no since day one, so I don't know how the hell this snuck through. But anyway, and they're not low ranking, not by a long shot, right? Because Hatsumi Sensei, if you did that, he would just snag your hand and send you on your way, right? And a lot of people have no idea why that happens. Well, it's because you're not grounded, you're not anchored, right? Your taijutsu, your leg work is, anyway. So advanced chase, retreat, escape, right? In this case, we're maneuvering in a tight space. So within those ranges, right, there's also gray areas in the middle. So what if I've used my lead arm and this is the next natural piece to go, but he's too far for a cross, okay? Maybe I'm too close for a lead, or this one's otherwise engaged. This is the next thing that's coming, and right, so I can adjust my body to get this one to go a little bit farther, right? So he's just out of range for this one, but he's too close for a full-on step, right? There are these little gray area kind of things, right? So just the ability to maneuver, right? And then that, because we're changing sides here as well we change sides a lot, but there's this other way of looking at things where what we're doing is we're changing sides, right? We're changing body, we'll just call it body alignment or body positioning, okay, without exposing targets, okay? What that means is, how do I change sides? How do I go from one side forward to the other side forward without having a bunch of stuff exposed to targets? And a lot of people would say you keep your limbs up, right? So when you change, right? You always got your guard up, except what about down here? Okay, so if I bring things down to a mid-level and I change, I'm still, right? So how do I keep shit from coming in when I'm changing position? Maybe I moved to one position and I've parried something which, you know, causes a position change, and then I'm going to advance back in. So anyway, so that's another one. Another one is changing angles. Change angles, relative angles to him, right? So he's here, I'm here, punch comes in. Instead of backing up or staying over here, maybe I need to move this way, right? So if I could change angles, or if you've ever been in a fight or done anything that dealing with violence or anything like that, in a parking lot between parked cars, right? You have, and I'm going to end up erasing this thing here quickly, but what you end up with in a fully loaded parking lot, and of course, if you're on the end, it's going to be different if it's not full, right? But the worst case scenario is you got 4 cars parked like this, okay? I don't care if it's headlights to headlights, taillights to taillights, opposite. I don't care, right? But what you have is, where's the fight going on in here? Where were you standing when you first had to move? Are you moving into the channel? So now you're in a tight space and restricted this way, right? Are you starting over here, so you move into the middle, so you got a little bit more, right? If I am here, if I'm dead center and this guy punches or attacks, I may not want to stay in the channel. I may want to keep him in that space. So instead of continuing to move this way, I may want to cut in a different direction, right? So that I change the alignment. We call that a flanking maneuver, right? Where he thinks the attack is to the front, right? And then here we come from the side, right? So there's a bunch of these little cool things that are tied up, right? If you've read Sun Tzu's Art of War, or any military combat tactics that was written by anybody who knows actual combat, then there are these things in there that when you start reading those things and you start exploring and researching actual heiho, HEI-HO, heiho, military tactics, ways of combat, that kind of thing, right? One of the things that you can do, you don't have to, right? One of the things you can do is apply the Omyo-do, or the yin yang, to it, right? So a lot of people look at this as opposites, but another way to look at this is you have the macrocosm, right? Or the big picture, right? And you have the microcosm, okay? The little picture, okay? So big picture, I'm reading this, I'm not a soldier, I'm not a mercenary, I'm not a gangbanger, whatever. I'm not going to be in a big battlefield thing. I get it. But tactics and strategies don't change based on the number of people. Tactics change a little bit. What changes is how many bodies you're throwing at somebody and from what direction. But if you read about these things, Sun Tzu's Art of War, whatever, I did a whole treatise. I need to dig this thing out. I keep threatening every once in a while, not really threatening, promising. I need to pull this thing out. I did a 13 or 15 part series one time on the 13 chapters in Sun Tzu's Art of War, and I converted it from a general of an army to a general of an army, and shown how the same tactics, right, that are for battlefield maneuvering and all that kind of stuff are all wrapped up in your kata. Okay. So, but if you could apply those things here, then you would see that our kata have direct on assaults, they have flanking maneuvers, they have feint retreats, and then an ambush, all kinds of wild, crazy things. But that's you can see it, but you got to get to the tactical and strategic level of thinking, and you got to get out of the technician. This is the only way to do the kata. This is all about throwing punches and kicks and whatever, and it's not about anything more, right? This is one-on-one fighting. I'm not in the army, so I don't have to worry about battlefield tactics, or the guy who is trained in battlefield tactics can't apply things to one-on-one. So when he jumps into a self-defense class, I remember when I was a soldier a long time ago, We learned all this soldiering stuff, and it took me a little bit until I got involved in this martial art and lucked out with the teachers that I got. But I didn't make the connection between these battlefield tactics and outmaneuvering somebody, creating bottlenecks, right? Trapping somebody, never leaving somebody without options. But if you leave yourself without options, like you burn your ships, then you got no choice, right? You either succeed or you die to the last man. So I was jumping into this martial art or that self-defense course or whatever, and I wasn't applying the knowledge from one area into the other. And so I bounced around. I always felt like there was a disconnect, like there was something off, but it's this bigger picture. And unfortunately, a lot of folks either don't see it. And but let me clear something up, because I don't think it was last week's episode or the week before, right? I'm always giving cautionary warnings, right? Get this. I highly recommend that you get this. If you don't, and it's not about training with me, I don't care who you train with, get this, or bad things can happen, right? If you limit yourself to being a one-trick pony, whatever, right? And somebody posted a comment after the thing was over, I get it, students are dumb and stupid. One, I never said that. Two, I gave conditions under which, if this is your thinking, there may be problems, or there's going to be problems. Okay. I also make reference to the fact there's a lot of people who think this way, and you need to be cautious that you don't fall into the same traps. But somebody heard that and twisted it into whatever their personality type likes to translate. Okay. This is not about me calling anybody anything. Okay. I would say that if you know better and you still stick to a particular way of doing things, even though you know better, it's kind of like a kid, right? Dad's already told him, smack your hands, I'll ground you for a week, you'll lose your phone, you'll lose your video game, whatever, right? If you reach into that damn cookie jar one more time and take a cookie, and the kid reaches into it and takes it, and then loses their stuff, they can be pissed at dad all day long, but they were stupid. You knew what was going to happen, but you did it anyway. That, to me, is stupid. Okay? You know what the consequences are, but you did the dumb shit anyway. That's stupid, right? Ignorance, not knowing any better, that's a whole different ballgame, right? We can only operate based on what we know and how we process things, which is why we learn and study, which is why I and you and what we go looking for teachers, we go looking for mentors, because hopefully we're looking for more than just moves, but we got to start somewhere, right? But if we keep moving up the line and we keep grabbing mentors and whatnot, hopefully what we're doing is we're not just finding people that know something. Learn me something, sensei, right? Hopefully what we're doing is we're finding people that can already do what we want to do to the degree we want to do it, or even farther, because this person thinks differently. This person processes things differently. They see that it's all different. It's not the way we already do it, but they're going to show us some tricks. No. All right. So just to be clear, I don't mean that anybody is stupid, except those who know better and still do dumb shit. Okay. So anyway, all right. So again, let's get back to this. Where was I on my notes? Okay. So we've got, again, this is not just charging into the fight. This is not just wildly throwing stuff, right? I do something, this guy's stumbling back and away from me. Maybe I kick, right? And so we teach, if you kick this guy away from you, but he didn't go down, don't waste the time. A lot of arts will kick, put the foot down, and then move in for the punch. That's wasted time, right? I'm going to kick, and as I put the foot down, right, the arm's going out, so I fill in that space so he doesn't have time to recover, right? So advancing, chasing him, right, keeping things going. The opposite is retreating, right? He's not giving me time to get in there or whatever, so I need to I need to create more space. This is stealing space. This is creating space, right? It's just different. This one is maneuvering in tight spaces. Maybe I don't have the space to back up. I don't have the space to go forward or the relative position between us. I need to generate more power, but like, how do I do that, right? How do I maneuver, change sides and whatnot in a smaller space, right? We can get this one where rear leg is stepping all the way forward, or in this one, the front foot stepping all the way back, right? But how do I change sides without losing the benefit of cover, guarding, and things like that, right? It's the same thing with this one. This one takes it a step farther. This one's about generating power in a smaller space. This one is about moving to a safe space and then changing positions outside of his range, outside of his reach, and then advancing back forward again, right? This one's about changing angles. And then the other bonus one that I had was in the ability to go from stepping to kicking, right? Using the legs for other things than stepping, but going from stepping to kicking, or just going from standing to kicking, right? Without telegraphing, right? Without telegraphing kicks, right? So on Friday, I'm going to be showing everybody a walking / kicking drill that they'll be walking and kicking, but what they're going to see is that one of these kicks that we use is just an exaggerated walking step. Okay. And if they can get that right, because one of the, tells for a lot of people is they'll pitch because they're taking the weight off that leg so they can move it, or they lean back, or just all those kind of things, right? Anybody that has any kind of fight experience, right? And if we think about Budo, right? Warriors that have been in battles and survived and whatnot, they have seen a lot of shit, right? So they know how different fighter types and whatnot telegraph things. That gives them a heads up, right? We have to take that away from them, right? Your job, before you ever think about winning and losing is a default state. Both of them are default states that are results from doing the right things more often and at the right time, and doing less of the wrong things at the wrong or right time, right? They're default states. So way early in this stuff, there's even stuff that comes before this where you get your head wrapped around that whoever does the most right things at the right time, universal justice says they're going to win, okay? Those who do more wrong things or make a mistake at the wrong time, universal justice says you're going to lose. This has nothing to do with morals and ethics, who's a more righteous person or whatever. This is about the reality of Budo, right? So that's why you make yourself right with your maker or whatever you do before you step onto the freaking battlefield, right? Anyway, all right. So again, I tried mapping this stuff out. We'll get to this little piece here in a minute. But again, for those of you who know the Sanshin, this is going to be a little bit easier to follow. For those of you who do not know the models, again, there'll be a link down in the description after we process this stuff and get it done for the after party, so to speak. If you're already on YouTube, you can just scroll down through the channel that this is showing on, right, and find the playlist that has those models in it. I'm much younger in those videos, but either way, get the models, and then you can pull this back up and follow along, right? But what I'm talking about with these is, right, with a start position, and I don't know how close you can see. Maybe we can zoom this in. I can't zoom my camera in, but we'll move this a little bit closer. Oh, earthquake! Oh no! All right, so maybe you can see that a little bit better. So I showed you it's live, right? I don't have the editing software zooming things in and stuff. All right, so so in this advancing one, what we're looking at is either we're starting here, we're starting at A, or we may have started like I've done up here with some of these to make it look a little bit more dynamic. But there's this extreme action kind of thing. I'm way back here, and then I'm moving way forward, right? So there's this direct line. And if you can see this, right, that's a little nose sticking out here. These are not boobs, that's Tabi feet, whatever, right? But the alignment of the shoulders, so this guy is left leading, right? And then when he gets where he's going, he's taking a full step, right? Full step forward, right? But this can also go in the opposite direction because that's advancing, right? But what about retreating? Well, I could have started here, right? This could be a position where I already backed up to assess things or whatever, and he's just coming in too damn fast. So I take that leg and I throw it back and I change sides. So in that case, I'm going this way, right? So we already covered 2 with 1 model. Chino Kata. That's not Chink. Sorry. Chino Kata. I don't need people to be, oh, sensei, look what you fucking wrote. Get a life. Anyway, all right. So that goes for everybody who's too damn sensitive. And you guys are not that because you're training to be warriors, or at least I fucking hope not. Nothing. It's already bothersome enough that people are moving through the world as adults and they can't handle the realities of life. What really cranks my chain or whatever, right, is people who want to be warriors and they're fucking highly offended by everything, right? Just, come on, man. We're warriors. That means that the worst that we have to worry about is death at the hands of somebody else, right? If somebody calling you a name has an opposing political view, religious view, whatever, if that is jacking you more than the fear of death, holy shit, I don't know. Anyway, all right, so let's get back to this, all right? So this next one, the reason I put them in here right here is because all the action is going on here, okay? So I'm going to kind of demonstrate it, but you can only see the upper part of my body, right? So I come back here to check something, and I move, and there's an opening, right? So obviously from right here, if I can go, I don't need to move my legs at all. I'm still advancing, but it's just, I don't know if you can picture what's going on down here, but it's just my knee, right? These models are about, you literally change sides, okay? In all of them. Or at least you come to center, right? So with this one, what I'm doing is what I call half steps, right? So when I talk to students and I say, check your Sanshin footwork, I don't just mean all of them. We tend to default to this one where you have the ability to go from Shizen, standing straight, right, to this profile position, right? So from here to here, and then changing sides, watch my body. Rear leg comes up to front leg goes back to where the rear leg was, well, on the same plane, right? So I'm changing sides, but I've stayed in this space. So if we're between those parked cars that I drew, or fixed tables at a frickin' restaurant, or we're at some big concert, fair, whatever, and it's just people to people, right? This is stuff that we had to work in Japan when Hatsumi Sensei had these big events, and it was just packed. I mean, you couldn't move without bumping into somebody. People were always bumping into you, and you had this pocket right between you and your partner, right? And he would always address these classes at the very beginning. He would say, look, this is a perfect opportunity to practice mano y mano, right? You're in this little bubble. You don't have a lot of space, okay? And so no matter what the kata was, right, no matter how far you were supposed to step back or whatever, you might have to adjust to clear so it would fly past this way and then make these little shifts so you get your partner in this bubble. And we would always still have jackwagons who always had to do it, and then they would trip over your legs or whatever, and then they'd look at you like you were in their way. It's kind of like, you know, people that can't freaking drive and they turn in front of you when they're making turns and they cut across lanes, and or they do dumb shit or whatever, then they look at you, they almost ran into you, but they look at you like you're the one that's at fault, right? Because you're in their way. Well, you know, so kind of like the pet pigs people used to have, right? They didn't care if they saw or heard or whatever food. They just go charging straight through. They'll wreck through your freaking legs and drop you on your body. I had a friend that had one of these things. It was cute when it was like this. As it got bigger, right? Well, they're as smart as a dog. Well, apparently not, because my dog knows to go around me. Anyway, right? So what this is is going back and changing in space, right? So you're operating in this space, okay? We go back, okay? And you can switch it just like this one. So maybe I go back, I need just a little bit of extra space here, right? So the front foot steps back to the rear foot, and then I move back in. But this one kind of crosses over here, right? Because I want to keep the cover going, but I create an opening and then I strike in that opening, right? Create an opening, I strike in that opening, but the strike is the shield, right? In this case, the strike is moved as a shield, right? Here, and I'm striking, right? This is no different than sword work, staff work, spear work, whatever. The weapon is the shield. It's not this. Okay? So this ability to maneuver, just like water, right? If I go up to the ocean's edge, if you've ever been to the beach, or you can visualize this, I go up to the ocean's edge where the water's lapping at the sand, and I reach right past the line of the water, dig my fingers into the sand and pull back beyond the water line. I create this trench, right? The water will just fill in, okay? So this is the ability to fill in and operate within the space that you have, okay? So look at that, okay? Then we have this one here. See, I didn't put them right here, even though all the action's still going here. And what I'm doing with my body, this transition thing, is pretty much the same, but the default up here is I move back, I'm moving in, but maybe he's moving in, or I don't have the space for that full-on step, right? So since he's at mid-range, I still need that same kind of power to go on, right? I'm just going to step to where I need to be, so that strike has the same amount of power when I hit as it would have if I went all the way through. Okay, it's just a matter of turning around the spinal column, right? With this one, right, what I'm doing is I'm moving in a way where I'm going to change position. This one's changing position on the fly on the way in. This one is moving back and not just bringing the foot back and then moving the whole body in. This one is changing position. That's why I made this little curly Q with the arrow right here. Okay, so we're going to move from A to B to defend, and then everything changes same time. So my feet go from, let's see, if I step back this way. So my feet go from, making little tobby toes here, right? Yeah, this way. Okay, I know, weird feet, right? Little birth defect. Anyway, so I've got this kind of thing. This foot steps back, and the feet then switch positions, okay? Where this one is pointing forward and this one's pointing sideways. When this one steps back, the spine rotation, right? This shoulder replaces this shoulder replaces this shoulder, so the spine doesn't wobble, right? So we go around ourselves, right? So this foot is now this way. This foot, because all we did was rotate on the heel, is now that way, right? So I've got this little thing under me, and the weight distribution changes. When I step back, most of my weight's here. When I do this little change, I don't have to only pull my foot back and rotate these feet in place. I have to transition the weight to the other foot, because this one's the next thing that's going to step in. Okay, so this one now starts to play with this kukan idea. Okay, much more. Okay, so what we're doing is we're moving back to just outside the edge of the kukan, this safe space where he can't reach you. And that's where we're changing direction, right? We're realigning the cannon. We're realigning our forces and whatnot out of their weapons range before we advance again, right? We don't try readjusting everything while we're taking fire. See how I keep using big hey-hole military kind of things? It's no different. Macrocosm, microcosm, it's all the same, right? So I shift, move into this, and while I'm turning around, I'm assessing, do I have an opening? And then I go in. It's really difficult to see this if we're still just in the 1, 2, 3. I don't care how fast you do it. If we're not looking at it from using the mind and using the assessment skills and things like that, then it's just a step-by-step thing. And for a lot of people, again, not calling anybody stupid, right? For a lot of people, it stays in a category of, oh, those are the beginner techniques. I know those. Really? Okay. So do you know them as a white belt? Do you know them as a shodan? Do you know them as an 8th dan? Do you know them as a 15th dan? Because they look different at different levels. And they should. And it's not that they necessarily physically look different, but what you're pulling out of them and what you see is very different. Okay. So this, where we're moving back, right, away from the attack, we change position, and then again, we change sides, and then we charge in, right, to the final thing, which is pretty much where he is anyway, right? So again, check the models. I feel like a football coach sometimes. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this little, anyway, all right? So we have this thing here, okay? So I have 2 things here. Sorry, let's get back over here. Ka no kata, okay? Ka no kata. Oh, and there's other transmission levels with the Sanshin, where we might not necessarily be looking at footwork, because the footwork's a given now, but we're going to look at the energy of, right? Okay. So what does a earth-like or chi no kata strike look like, feel like, not just to him, but when you're doing it, right? What does a water, again, it's a code, right? It's a way to help you remember it easier, but what is this one like, right? What is this one like? What's the timing like in each of these things? Okay. But when we're first learning it, first level transmission, everything is chi no kata. Step by step by step by step. Then we add some flow to it, right? And then we add some speed to it. And then we add some adaptability to it. And then we start applying critical thinking, Kyojutsu Tenkan, those kind of things, right? Anyway. So, all right. So with this one, right, what would we just check off, right? We just checked off maneuvering in tight spaces. That was Sui no Kata, changing the body position without exposing targets because we're out of range. Here we're changing the body without exposing targets because we're hiding behind the frickin' weapon as we're advancing in, right? He's worried about defending, not about getting our targets on this one. Here, we're going from one side to the other, and we might open things up. So how do I do that just slightly out of his range? And then once I get to that new position, if I have an opening, boom, I can pop straight back in there. Fire, bang. I can just go. I'm not 1, 2. Well, let's just throw our targets at his weapon, shall we? I mean, shift, go, and we can just go. Foot, hand. So each of these kind of presupposes that you have the body intelligence, not intelligence, body intelligence, body skills, freedom of movement and whatnot from the earlier ones to be able to do that next one. Do you have to learn them that way? No. Shit. That's Hatsumi Sensei said once after somebody had said, Sensei, do we have to do that Mikyo stuff? Sensei, do we have to, whatever? And he said, no, you don't have to, no. Okay. And then he looked over at a couple of us and he winked and he said, you don't have to breathe either, but we highly recommend it. Okay. So anyway, so here, now what we have is maneuverability, right? Changing angles. So I start in one position, the attack comes in, and instead of moving away and moving back, so from here up, everything's two-dimensional. It's all about this, okay? Now, there is one model that's like that, but this kind of splits things. Okay, kind of almost has a ka kind of feel to it. But we start in this position, and he comes in, and I flank, right? I move to a new position. So instead of moving this way, I move this way and then step behind. So the stepping foot, when I step, I'm stepping to the point where I want my front foot to be because it's in line with his target. So I'm stepping off and parrying and then stepping behind that. So the end position is exactly the same. So if I miss and he looks at me, he's gained nothing. This is the idea behind Tai Saaki. Okay, Tai Saaki is not just footwork. It's not just body movement. It's not just evasion. Tai Saaki, we did a whole Whiteboard Wednesday on it. It's probably one of the first ones we did, right? It is yes evading, and yes repositioning, and yes using proper footwork, but simultaneously I am closing off my targets and opening up his with my footwork and with my body movement. So from his perspective, he has gained zero. He has a zero gain. He has no more access to me when I get where I'm going than he had when he was first looking at me. But for me, I have 1,000% change because he was buttoned up. But when he punches and I go over here, see, his style's all set. This is that one-hit wonder kind of thing. He's all set to be safe against somebody where he's toe-to-toe with. But now the assault force is over here. So when he looks at me, he still sees buttoned up. When I'm looking at him, everything's open. So it's a different skill. It's a different skill than just stepping, just going to kamae or whatever, right? Because you have to adapt on the fly. Okay, so it's not that one person's dumber than the other or whatever. It's one person is looking for things. Their skill set with the fundamentals is better, so their brain can look for and adjust for things on the fly because their brain's not tied up thinking about where do I step and where does my hand go. As long as our brain is tied up with those things, we'll never see things at the next level, which is why we have to practice until we're just bored to fucking tears or we want to throw up because we're doing everything we can to build the telephone network that's in your brain that sends the signals and wires things into muscle memory so you don't have to think about it. You simply have to want it, right? I'm sitting, I'm reading the paper, I want to drink from the, whatever I brought with me, tea, whatever, right? And I'm reading and I don't think about where it is in space. I don't think about how my hands have to go around it. Is it a teacup? Is it a glass? Is it a can? I don't have to think about any of that stuff. I don't think about where my lips are, but think about a baby who's learning how to drink. Spilling shit on themselves and all that kind of stuff because there's too much going on, right? And they only know that they're trying to get stuff in their mouth, but they can't get the angle right, choking and stuff like that, right? Our movement needs to be the same mentally and physically as you picking up something that you want. You don't think about how to pick it up, where to move it to, how to move it to right or whatever. You simply want something to come to happen. I don't think about how this marker works, and I don't think about how to make a letter C or whatever. I simply need to communicate to you something, and my hand moves, and these things come out. Right? To me, that's freaking magic. But how long did that take? Right? Okay, so same process. So here's a flanking maneuver, right? I get over here, and then I come right back in against that thing. Or there's another model where you just move directly. So here we have changing angles and going, right? What was this one? Without targets, right? That was Kata. This one here, right? Changing angles and then coming back in at him from a different position, right? But let's go back to this one, okay? And actually, this model done this way combines Chino Kata and Suino Kata with almost a leap kind of thing, but not quite, where you change your body position in space. So if we were talking about parrying and all that, that would be going in. But what I'm doing is I'm holding my position, right? I'm right there. He attacks. My body center stays right there. And my legs switch position, which means my torso switches position, which means an uke nagash happens, and the attack to him happens simultaneously, or for my Canadian friends, simultaneously. Okay? So this one is more of a wind kind of, I'm chasing the dust bunny, and I can't get a hold of it kind of thing. This one is, it's just a quick change, and multiple things are happening at the exact same time. Onaji. Okay? So, but either way, what we're looking at here is Funowaza. Okay? Funowaza. Okay? And then, so we've covered all these things down, so I guess we're at the bonus now. So what we have here is the entry into Kyojutsu Tenkan, right? Kyojutsu Tenkan, right? Whole is the method of altering truth and falsehood, right? And so in the beginning, folks might not have an easy job of, like, you know, transitioning from stepping to using the legs for more than just stepping, okay? More kicking, right? It's repurposing the legs, right? But since we're bipeds, how do we do that without compromising balance, without struggling, without pitching, leaning, telegraphing, right? All this stuff, right? Well, in this particular kata, what we do is do a little magician's thing. Hey, look over here, and then you kick him, okay? But there's actually other models, there's other variations of this model where you can do a kick feint and then pop him, and there's another model also where you can kick him and hit him at the same time, because the reality is that the human body can't save both things at the same time when you go high and low, right? To save one, right? Which is why we always move everything at the same time. It's the only way to do it. But if you catch somebody off guard, their flinch response pulls their groin, their face moves forward. For those of you going through the realm of the strategic warrior, or our module 2 in our program, we just did week 7 videos, the technique videos, and we covered 3 models from Koto school that does this, right? It moves their consciousness around in the fight. And so there's a feint, right? One has a feint high, one has a feint mid, and one has a feint low on the body. And then the follow-up goes to a different place. So if we feint high, the follow-up is in a different place. It's either low or mid. If we feint mid, we go high. If we feint low, then, or actually, if you really do that one, it's not necessarily a feint. You're snapping the connections where their toes plug into their foot. But either way, right? You go low, and then the follow-up is either mid or high. I tend to go mid, but either way, okay? So with this one, all right, this is Kuno Kata, okay? So ultimately, all of this stuff just goes back to, what are we doing, right? Let's do it this way, okay? So this one, right, is advancing and retreating. This one, right, Suino Kata, this one is maneuvering in space as you're advancing, being able to change positions on the fly, right, as you're going, and adapt to a tighter space, right? This one is moving to the edge of the kukan and changing position before you advance back in. So that one is that one, right? And then this one, this wind version, this particular version is changing angles and then coming in at a different angle. But this version is a combination of that one and that one with a different type of footwork, because you're going to have to lift both feet at the same time, and not just move your feet, but your torso has to change. So either way, right? And then this one down here, which is repurposing the legs and not telegraphing kicks, we're over here, okay? So tactical footwork for more than just going toe-to-toe with somebody, okay? So anyway, anybody has any questions, you can always post it on whatever platform you're on. We'll try to get to those questions. We do our best to get to them. Doesn't always happen, but you can always post those, or you can send an email to Warrior C, WARRIOR. The flaming comments I get because I don't answer email, and then I ask them what email address they sent, and they can't spell warrior. Warrior and the letter C, right? At warrior-concepts-online.com, and just pop in a question or whatever. If you have a topic request, you want the trained monkey to cover something during one of these Whiteboard Wednesdays, you pop that in. If I can make the format work where we're doing Kuden training, right? Mental knowledge-based training that we're going to then take to the battlefield. That's right. If I can make it work, great. If not, who knows? It could end up being a Kuden podcast episode, or it could be a topic that we throw into an upcoming seminar. Okay. Or it might turn into a whole program. Who knows? Okay. If you need to marry these things up, or you want to see more about how the strategy works and what we're looking at and overcoming common mistakes, then get yourself signed up for this Friday virtual training. Right now, the page is being redone for those of you who are on live. If you're watching the recording here in a few hours or whatever, it'll probably already be changed over. And you'll know if you go to that and the button's not live, it's still being updated from last week. But if you go there and there's a timer that's running and it has the date, which is, let's see, this class coming up January 12th, right? So if it has that date on it, then you'll be able to sign up for that class. $4.99 US. That's it, right? For an hour and a half class. Otherwise, this should be enough to get most of you going, especially the do-it-yourselfers and the ones who are already right there anyway. So, but anyway, I started it with something fairly neat and I don't know, new age art or something. Anyway, all right. So that's what I have. I will talk to everybody again next time. Be safe, train hard, and well, train. Talk to you later.